On this episode, we'll be breaking down all the things that have happened in the world of football this week. There are some fun, interesting things. For certain supporters, they are celebrating winning the Premier League. I'm not sure how fun that is. Seems boring. But for others, they are also thinking of whether or not they can go to PSG next week and salvage their hopes of winning the Champions League after bottling the Premier League for 3 seasons in a row. This episode would cover everything. So if you are a fan of Chelsea, Arsenal, Liverpool, um, Real Madrid, Barcelona, PSG, stick with us and let us know your thoughts on the discussions that we have around your club. Erasmus, Liverpool won the EPL this week. Did you feel anything about them winning anything at all? Did you even feel that anyone won the EPL?
Well, if you consider that I live in the city of Liverpool, then yes, I did feel it. That very day, they won the
Yeah,
game. The city was almost chaotic. Like down the streets in the neighborhoods, you see people hanging the 20 trophy. So I think within the city of
yeah,
Liverpool and among Liverpool supporters themselves, there's a lot of excitement. You know, this is their 20th
yeah,
title, right? So this is the one that equals Manchester United, and has been a long-standing rivalry where Manchester United said, well, this is as far as you can
yeah,
go. And those of you who also don't know, Manchester is quite close to Liverpool. So that rivalry transcends beyond
yeah.
football. So for them, it means a lot. And I would say that's probably the only one that matters. But I can understand the lack of excitement all around in general. It looks like, and we'll be talking about it, I'm sure, it looks like this year the winners was quite a straightforward business.
Yeah.
Those going to relegation was quite a straightforward business. And it's down there in the Champions League spots that we're seeing like a lot of debate and excitement. But still, congratulations to Liverpool anyway. I think they ran a
I
fantastic
mean, let me
campaign.
be the dark horse in the room. Judging Klopp,
Of course.
Jurgen Klopp lost. I'm not even going to engage you on this, of course, that you just said, because I understand what you mean. But Jurgen Klopp lost the Premier League with 97 points, 99 points. And what? And Slot is winning it with 87 or something points. He currently Liverpool are 82 points and they've already won the league. I mean, is this to prove that Anslot is brilliant, or is it that Pep had a bad season and Arteta, as always, bottled it with Arsenal, and therefore Liverpool just walked through to go and win? Because I'm sure at the
I mean,
start of this season, everybody felt this was Arsenal's season after they realized that City were struggling, right? Everybody felt this was Arsenal's season, and Slot had come in, is a new coach. Everybody felt it would take some time to adapt and all that. But he took his surprise element very well. Don't get me wrong. Like the fact that a lot of coaches don't understand his statics, they've not really studied him yet. He used that and gained advantage of the teams and then took the lead very, very early on. But now he's winning the league. And for me personally, if you look at the title races that have happened in the past 6 years, this is probably the most boring one I've seen. And it feels more like Pep slept off for Slot to have a winning streak, and Arsenal just gave them the table by bottling as always.
no, what I can assure you is that none of the managers just wanted to sleep off and just like give the title away to Liverpool. I'm sure all of them challenged and competed to the end. But I think what's interesting, and I want to start from here, Arteta was giving commentary about Liverpool winning the
Yeah,
title, and he gave them their congratulations, to be fair. But what caught my attention was that he says that, well, they were lucky to have all of their players available. And then he mentioned a list of players who were out for Arsenal. And he says, like, most of these guys were in the starting 11 and were out at different points in time in the season. So if he looks at what they've done, it's incredible. But that's the point I want to. It seems for me sticks out for Liverpool. It looks like the other clubs who traditionally would
yeah,
challenge faced massive problems with their roster, either like a lot of players going injured or different situations, which meant that players were
yeah,
unavailable. And I think beyond the question of competition, it is generally concerning if the availability of players becomes the deciding factor for
yeah.
titles. I think it is quite unfair, which of course, leads us to talk about the scheduling issue. Don't get me wrong; it's not like Liverpool also didn't play many
Yeah.
games, but I think not signing any player, everyone was like,
No, but you
"Look,
see,
you are done. Your season is
that's what I'm
done."
about
Yeah,
to say. That
only for them to win the
I
league.
don't think
Yeah.
Arteta's concerns or his comments are valid in any way to try and dumb down Liverpool's win to simply having players available. Liverpool did almost no transfer business in the summer. They were going into this
Mm.
season with the most likely squad to have issues compared to Arsenal, who were
Yes.
bolstering their squad. City also didn't do business. So if there's anyone to complain, probably Manchester City and not Arsenal. Arsenal had their options.
Mm.
Also, the things that lost Arsenal the what do you call it, the title very early on were very silly mistakes they themselves were making. Those red cards, silly red cards, flimsy red cards that were causing them to lose
Mm.
points here and there at the start of the season before they picked up momentum. Arteta should not do this. Like he
You really don't like Arteta, do you?
no, it's not about not liking him. I think he's a brilliant manager. I think he's a brilliant manager who tries to be too smart sometimes. Just concede that you made mistakes and it came back to haunt you, and that give them their flowers. Because I could also say the reason why Slot had majority of his players is because he was wise enough to dumb down the intensity under which Klopp was playing them. And for players who are built
Yeah.
up to that intensity, any sort of relief helps them. Right? There are moments where he's taking MoSalah off, and MoSalah has been pissed off. And the whole point is he's managing his game load so that he doesn't get injured. And so he takes those hard
Yeah.
decisions. You sit and say you don't want to sign a
No,
striker
no.
and
So for me,
and wait to go and throw
of
some
course,
bid to Oli Watkins sometime near the January transfer window. And come and sit and tell
no,
people
I
that's
think
injuries.
if we start talking about like Arsenal, like there are lots of things that they didn't do
Yeah.
right. But in context of like Liverpool winning the title, you would say that they have been quite very lucky with the injury situation. I
Yeah.
know like Jota was in
So
and
now
out at some
disagree.
point in time. Cody Gakpo was in and out at some
Yeah.
point in time. They were one of the teams that like really had like a stable, strong
Man
squad,
City,
and I mean compared to their immediate
all the seasons that
competitors.
Man City has won Premier Leagues, don't tell me they've not had major injuries. Even the last Premier League that they won, Kevin De Bruyne was out for a very long time, up until the latter end of the
Mm,
season when he came. And I remember his return in that Newcastle game or so when he gave that 2 assists and eventually won the game for them. But these
mm,
teams that win do not use injuries as excuses. And that's why when Pep Guardiola kept saying at the start of the season that it's because of Rodri, it's because of Rodri alone, everybody circled back eventually and said, well, you created a team that only needed Rodri to play. And so whether or not Rodri is on
mm.
injury and your team is struggling, it's on you, the manager, to find a tactical solution to it. And if you've not been able to find it, you don't blame the injury. At some point, you stop and blame yourself
Mm.
for not being able to find the solution. So Arteta cannot say, "Oh, we had injuries, therefore we couldn't win the league."
No. I mean, like obviously, like I said, he gave fair to Arteta. He gave credit to Liverpool. Like it didn't seem in any way that he was trying to
I mean, as
dampen
for the
the
credit there,
achievements
you
that
give it
Klopp
for
had
the media duties.
done.
For the
And
media,
but no, but like back to the points that you were
yeah,
making, right? That 87 points winning
it
in the
seems
league
like
is a bit of
less competitive. The
meh.
standards have dropped.
So yeah, but definitely, like I think you can only beat what's in front of you, and that's what Slot has done. He's conquered what's in front of him. So maybe we'll see when, and he has the opportunity to go into the market, and then also we see his footprint in the market, which I'm quite interested in the kind of players that he would like to buy, because the only player he bought,
Yeah,
Chiesa, he never used
no,
him. So I'm quite curious to see the kind of players that he's going to bring in, if he's going to tweak the style, because towards the end of the season, I don't know if you noticed that this team was dropping off. I
yeah,
hope they drop off against Chelsea this Sunday. But you realize
yeah,
that
they've been dropping
the
off.
team was sort of like losing energy a bit, like what they had in terms of their solid structure. Teams were beginning to find a way to play against them, give them
This is what I
far
was
more
saying, that
difficult moments. Which,
I think the most thing that worked
yeah,
for him was he became like this new manager that people were now trying to figure out how he plays. So for a lot of managers,
Yeah.
it's their first experience. It's the same advantage Ten Hag had when he came that made him finish third. A lot of teams are figuring out how is he playing. Is he playing a back three, a back
Mm.
four?
Yeah, so I'm keen to see how it evolves and he challenges. Like, I don't think Liverpool becomes weaker, but for me, like Trent's leaving, Salah, I know he's 32, but like there's a point at which like the age starts to show,
Yeah,
right? Van Dijk, there's a point at which the age starts to show, and these are not just important players. These are players that if you take them out of that Liverpool team, it easily becomes like easily becomes a team that just sits that doesn't compete for titles.
yeah,
That's like my description. So I'm keen to see how they move on. But fair play, Liverpool. Congratulations. Happy 20th title. There's a parade in the city later on in the month.
yeah.
So I'll be joining them. I'll be getting my red colors. In case you see me there, that's not me. Just so you know.
Hey, Chelsea fan joining Liverpool parade. Just switch, switch
I'm,
teams,
I'm a scout by association now. I need to show my
switch
loyalty.
allegiances and join Liverpool so you can go and watch their matches every day.
No, 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 no. This weekend when we're even playing against them, I have to hide in my room because if I jubilate,
You hear things in the neighborhood. I mean, for me,
yeah,
my final question on this is how should Liverpool fans assess this? Because they've seen standards set between the competitive nature of JurgenKlopp versus Pep Guardiola's era. And you look at the standards that they finished at 97, 99, still losing by 1 point to Pep Guardiola's Centurions and all that. And you are thinking, do they conclude that this team is much better than the club teams that achieved those heights? Is this team playing much better than the club teams? Or is it that everyone else is sort of struggling a bit and that's why this team is having it slightly easier? And that next season, if you have teams come back to, let's say, Pep Guardiola's rebuild goes fine, he gets Rodri back and he starts playing the way in which he wants to play, maybe this team would struggle and not meet the competitive demand? Or is it that they didn't get the competition, so we can't assess them? When they get it, then we can fairly assess them as to whether or not they are fine in that hyper competitive era.
no, I think first of all, like Liverpool fans should not analyze anything. They should just go and enjoy, which is what they've been doing.
Yeah,
I think the sentiment amongst the fans is that, oh yeah, they've been unlucky all throughout these
yeah, yeah,
years,
yeah.
97, 91, so they deserve this, which I think is a fair assessment. I think anyone who will be doing any analysis would have to be the technical team or whoever is in
Yeah,
charge of um their new season. But like I said, you only beat what is in front of you, and there's just as much as they can take from that. Theirs is to prepare, make sure that they have a team that is ready to compete for next season. And I do think that when you are champions, when you win the title, it adds something to the team. So even if we say, oh, this Liverpool team at the start of this season was not that kind of team and they only got over the line, having a title counts a lot. It will influence like the kind of players that they are able to
yeah, the
sign
character of the
and the
team.
players be able to attract, yes, the kind of experience that they've been able to give to us. Even for some of them, they had players like Harvey Elliott, some of their younger players who were now being integrated. Harvey Elliott, for example, was injured, and these guys will now come in there. They'll be adding like a lot of quality to their squad. So I think that Liverpool, I don't think they will go away, especially for Slot. Also, he's a brilliant manager. He knows how to win leagues and he's quite smart. So I think he'll be in there. But as to whether they retain their title, for me, it depends on how the Arsenal rebuild goes and how the city. Because at this point, everyone like really feels so sorry for Arteta. But
Me, I don't feel sorry
uh,
for him. I think the Arsenal rebuild is Arsenal still rebuilding. We've been rebuilding for what, 5 to 6 years now. And see, that's the thing. I don't. these are some of the issues that I have with Arteta. And we'll use this opportunity to switch to their UCL match against PSG at home where they lost 1-0. Arteta has had the opportunity to build some of the most exciting teams. You've always gotten to the point where you feel like, oh, this manager, he just needs to add 1, 2, and he's done. Because he's gotten majority of the foundations right. He's gotten his backline correct. I think last season they were the team with the best defensive record. He's figured out his midfield situation by bringing in DeclanRice and all that. He has Saka, who is a very, very consistent winger. So you would have figured maybe the two places he needed more was giving Martinelli competition and probably signing a much more impressionable winger than Martinelli, and then bringing in a striker. What does Arteta go and do with Edu? Go and sign a bunch of defenders and bring them again. I'm wondering, what exactly do you want? Like, you signed Timber. Timber was out the entirety of last season. He was literally coming back. Then you go back and sign Calafiori. What are you looking for? And then down the season, you start getting punished by the fact that you don't have a striker. You go and make a makeshift striker out of Merino. You bring him back to midfield, and he's struggling because over the past 4 to 5 weeks, you've been playing him as a makeshift striker, and his physique and his approach and his tactical awareness is all about playing as a centre forward. And then you are saying you are still doing a rebuild. Like, at what point should this rebuild come to an end for Arteta and Arsenal?
No, so like I think like if I'm being like an advocate over here, and yeah, this is a good segue also into the PSG game. Like this Arsenal team is one of the, like, they are in the top 4 in Europe at this
67
moment,
points.
given the season. Yes, given the season that they've had, you would have
They are not
thought
top 4 in
this
Europe.
team will be out.
They are not top 4 in Europe.
No, they are. I
I
mean,
mean, like,
technically by
in
the
the
champion.
Champions League. Oh, come on. I don't think they are top 4. I don't think they are top 4 by ranking
So
European like teams.
yeah, but like so far we don't have a metric to determine that. So this is
Look, there's a
practical
metric.
top
The
4.
eye sees
Yeah,
better.
yeah.
The eye sees better.
I should trust your eyes over
Oh,
facts.
I trust my eyes for Arteta.
So they are one of the 4 last
Yeah.
teams in Europe at this point. So, and they're a team that everyone respects. And looking at the injuries and all of the problems which you've mentioned, they are still a very, very good side. Like, they beat Real Madrid, which obviously is not the strongest Real Madrid team. But even against this PSG team, where you'd say that, oh, they were dominated, they still go away with a 1-0 lead. They still go away with just a 1-0 loss, with a feeling that they can still come back at Paris. So generally, if you look at us now, they are a respectable side. And if you look at it compared to when Arteta came to pick up the club, it's not a club that you would think would make semi-finals in Champions League. It's round of 16 exit. So I'm coming. Let me make my point. So I think if you look at what Arteta has done, he still helped to build a very, very good side. However, I agree with you that there are some things which he needs to get right in order to move them over the line. But these things are also very, very difficult, right? I think there's a point at which, like, those kind of things requires some bit of luck. You can plan, and we can all say things in hindsight, but sometimes to have that foresight to be able to predict these kind of things is usually very, very difficult. I do think they still need to get a 9. I think they should have gone one in the winter, but I understand why they didn't, because if you look at how the transfer market is, people don't have the luxury of spending. They are not the only clubs behaving this way. Like, Chelsea's behaving in the same way, apart from Man City, who went out to splurge in the winter. A lot of clubs are now being very, very conservative and try, like, look at the time at which Chelsea's signing players. Chelsea's signing players now before the summer gets there, entering into pre-agreement 2-3 years away. The landscape is changing a bit, so I can excuse him on that. But I think on the whole, he's done like a fantastic job. He's done a fantastic.
You see, there are 2 things I want to point out here. The first one is, I don't think it's still fair to be assessing Arteta based on where he came to pick the team. He's far past that assessment, Because if we always keep benchmarking when he came to pick the team, every Arteta performance would be a great performance. Every Arteta performance would be a great performance. In fact, his very first season, when he came to pick the team and won, he won a cup with them or so? He won. That season was better than before he came to pick them. So every single Arteta season is far better than the season before he came to pick them. So I don't find that a persuasive assessment of whether or not Arteta is doing well or not. And here's the thing. There's always this thing about his Achilles heel now is not to prove that he's a manager who is able to build a team. His Achilles heel now is to prove that he's a manager who is able to build a winning team. Because he's been able to build a team. He's been able to change the culture of the team, bring an exciting playing philosophy, bring good attitude, and sign brilliant players into the team. It's now whether or not he can be able to identify who makes the team a winning machine and brings that person in. You think about what Pep Guardiola has done. The brilliance of Pep is not that he's been able to build teams that can play tiki-taka football and dominate plays. He's been able to build winning machines, and that's the reason why he's called Pep Guardiola and his name resonates with football philosophy. So for me, Arsenal fans now, and the reason why Arsenal fans sometimes start to sound ungrateful to Arteta is because they've clearly moved beyond a club who needs a savior to bring them a playing identity.
That's a fair point.
They've now moved to a club who needs a title. And for the past 3 seasons, Arteta has proven that this team can win. They have the potential to win. They have the ability to win. Now they should. And that's where the burden is. And he's not been able to do so. So for me, if anybody is assessing him and saying that he's not doing well, if you say that he's not done well since he came, that's like an outrageous thing to say. But if you say that he's not proven that he's a winning manager, then that's a fair assessment because that's where he is.
I completely agree with you. Where I have a bit of patience for him, and this is my last point on this, but like where I have a bit of patience for him is also because I know that the margins for winning usually like they are very, very slim, and sometimes they depend on things you don't exactly have full control over. And I think that like in building one of the sites that people even believe that they can compete in the first place, that's like massive credit. Like every time you ask Arsenal fans, they are like, oh yeah, we've built this team to this point. We need this coach to come and take us here. We need a coach that has that. But people also forget that this is his first managerial stint. He's going to grow into it. And this Arsenal squad that he's built, I think, like if you look at Pep's squad after 6 years, they were gone.
Yeah.
Like everything is short, right? And it's looking like he has to do a whole new rebuild. I think that's the risk for Arteta. However, I think he's built a squad like people like Saka are still like 23, 24, Odegaard still 25. So Saliba 25. So these are guys who can still play for the next 4 or 5 years, and I think definitely there's something on the cards for them. Hopefully longer than earlier, because also as a Chelsea fan, I want my team to do well. We are competing in there, man.
It's true. Arteta's. So this is the thing I'm trying to say. Arteta's managerial career is impressive. For his first like full-time managerial job, take Arsenal, rebuild it, bring it to the team that he is, to the point that when people talk about him now, everybody expects him to be at the elite level of football managers in terms of behavior and decision making. So nobody even judges him on a novice manager-based stuff. That's great. But that also might be the reason why he's not the person to win Arsenal the Premier League. Because it might simply be that he's not...
That's a bold statement.
Yes, it might simply be that he's not had the experience to do that. And you see, let me point this out. For the past 3 seasons that Arsenal has been favorites or has been competing for the league title, aside this season, the past 2 seasons, Arsenal had led the table for a very long time and bottled it. That's the reason why people said they bottled the league. It's not that they lost the league. They bottled it because they were leading for so long. For both of those seasons, City led the league for fewer days than Arsenal and still won the league. It's about winning. And that's the whole point. That's the whole bottom line of Arteta's issue. And so when we also talk about the fact that, well, you can't predict some of these things, I'm sure going into last summer, everybody expected Arsenal to sign a centre forward. Gabriel Jesus is the centre forward you were relying on. He's always injured. He's not a prolific goal scorer. The alternative, Edin Ketia, you sold him that summer. Which team profiling in that state tells you you don't sign a center forward? That's as obvious as it gets, unless you as a manager make a conscious decision and decide to play without a center forward, like Pep did with the same Gabriel Jesus for a very long time. If you do that and you don't win, your fans will come back to bite you. The reason why Pep got away with it was because he did that and scored millions of goals and still won by 100 points and the rest. So he got away with it. But Arteta, you do that and don't win, the media, the fans, everybody will now start ranting, why didn't you sign a center forward? So he's making decisions that is proven to be risky, that if they are paying off, it makes him a genius manager. But they are not paying off. So it's making him a dumb manager who is looking like he's making very naive decisions. And that's the whole point that Arsenal fans have with him now. So
anyway, let's talk about the second leg with PS.
do you
with
think
PSG.
Arsenal will go through to the
Like,
final? Do you think Arsenal will go through to the final?
No, they won't go.
Just
They
say
won't go.
this one is landing against. This one is just landing pure.
No, it's not landing against. Like, come on. My brand is an objective pundit. Like, I'm a Chelsea fan. I don't hide it, but I can.
Chelsea fan
when I
slash
make
objective pundit. I think we should put that name. You now will call you that on the podcast.
No, but I think like lots of noise has been made about what. Like, I want to get your opinion on this. Obviously, I shouldn't get your opinion on this because you are biased anyway. But like, after the Arsenal game, everyone was like, "Oh, they missed Partey.
Yeah.
Partey was the missing key." And like, even right after the Madrid game, it was quite clear that without Partey, like, everyone knew Partey was not going to be in the game. But it feels like I watched a different game. I don't see how having Partey there shifts the tie. Does it improve Arsenal, maybe, defensively? Yeah, I think it does. I think it improves them in terms of how much they are also able to keep the ball, how much they're able to resist the press of PSG. Because against them in the first leg, it looks like Arsenal didn't want the ball because, like, PSG was hounding them every time that they went for it. And when you have Partey, who is very good with moving into the pockets, manipulating the ball, finding space, maybe it gets better. And people also say Merino is far more physical. And when he's able to drop into the midfield, increase the bodies in the midfield, it doesn't look to me like that's what they needed. It just looks like PSG is just like the better all-round team. And it only looks like Arsenal is quite threatening with set pieces. So I just wanted to get your opinion on it because everyone seems to think that when Partey comes back, like now you have an Arsenal team that can overpower PSG or can go toe-to-toe with them.
You see,
I like Partey, but I don't see
Arsenal's profile and their strength that they've been relying on the entirety of, and the kind of team that Arteta is building is a very physical squad, but technically gifted, right? Like they have technical abilities. So if they meet a team like PSG that we've said, who escapes the physicality of teams by just being like 300% much more technical than you would ever be, your physicality means nothing. So if you had Partey in there in the midfield, it doesn't change the fact that Vitinha and co will still be running rings and circles around him because his physicality would not change the way in which they play and their technical ability to escape all these things. Secondly, I think maybe, there's a little bit of a drop in the midfield dynamics because you've been having Partey play these high-profile games. And you see, every ounce of improvement counts in these high-profile games because it might be the difference between playing a line-breaking pass within a split second and not playing it, which would lead to maybe a goal or not. It might be the difference between blocking a pass, which might seem harmless at first, but eventually leads to a goal on the other end or a chance created on the other end. So every single ounce of drop in performance counts in these games. So sure, I would definitely not say that Partey's presence would have resolved Arsenal's challenges by a snap of a finger. But if it meant that the midfield played a bit better, that could also dictate the game in a different way. That could mean that Arsenal create some chances that would change the mood, lift the fans. There are so many minute things that could have happened within those situations. The bigger problem here is Arteta's denial of the fact that Partey would have had an influence on the game. And for me, that is, again, he's just saying, well, Merino, he focused on Merino's advantages in the midfield. But clearly, everybody could tell. If you are a manager, Erasmus, and you have a high-profile game such as this, a semi-final of a Champions League, this is similar to what Pep Guardiola did in that UCL final against Chelsea, that he was punished. And then he later comes back to say, oh, yeah, he realizes what he did. You don't take such risks. But obviously, Partey was suspended, so that's fine. You don't have an option. But
yeah, like that's what I wanted to highlight, because when Odegaard was asked, it didn't seem like the players had considered it. Like, so it seems everyone around is the one making a big deal of his absence. But personally, I agree with Arteta and I agree with Odegaard over there. They have players who can do similar things, who give you something
they don't have an option.
different.
They don't have a choice. And managers and team members also have to be politically correct, mind you. They cannot say that we missed Partey and that's why. Because then inadvertently, you are blaming whoever you put there for being the reason why you lost. So they have to thread the line very, very carefully. And that's why they, as manager and teammates, would never be the ones you'd hear from say that we had, unless it's like a clear injury.
They've not met Maresca. Maresca will say
Pep Guardiola would also say it. He would say we missed this player and that's why.
Yeah, we missed this player. He gives us something that nobody else
also
gives us.
It's reflective of Arteta's philosophy in the team. No excuses, except he wants to be the one to make the excuses for them. Nobody makes excuses. So everybody just goes ahead and plays the way in which they want. Which I think...
Anyway, I know it's an exciting
game.
Yeah,
it would definitely be an exciting game because, look, PSG would be looking for spaces. Arsenal would offer the spaces to them because they want to score. And 1-0 is a very tempting scoreline because Arsenal would feel like all we need is one goal and the tie is reset. That would be the Achilles heel because PSG, Dembele is arguably currently probably
he's out for the game.
But I mean, this PSG squad, if you think about the profile of players that they have, I'm not sure how Dembele being out would affect their play though, because I've not seen them play without him in the Champions League. But bro, this player, I don't know what Luis Enrique had done to him. He seems like a different animal, a different beast unleashed.
I know. 35 goal involvements this season.
It's insane. So I mean, Arsenal should have hope. Means the hope that kills. So I hope that they have hope and go and then fight it all. But I also think that this Arsenal team has faced character tests every single step of the way. Last season, they faced it and dropped out in the quarterfinal. This season, they are facing another one in the semi-final, and they will determine how far they go. Pep Guardiola will tell you, it took God knows how long for him to win the Champions League with Man City. So let's see how these things go as well. So other English teams did well in Europe. This week you had Chelsea winning the first leg of their semi-final tie in the Conference League. United and Tottenham winning the first legs of their semi-final ties in the Europa League. And the English media is happy. Like, the English media are just on and on and on about these teams are winning and it's a good day for England.
You know what's annoying me? You know what's annoying me about the Europa League tie? These are teams that are sitting in, is it 14th and 15th?
Very terrible places in the league.
And they have a chance to play UCL. Tell me, in what world is this fair? In what world is this fair? No, but I think it says a lot for the strength of the English Premier League also. Yeah, these are teams who just aren't cutting it in the Premier League, but somehow are beating up everybody else in Europe's second tier competition, which tells you the quality of the teams which they have. But then also like football is some way. Like it will be so unfair. I don't know. Sorry, clarify the rules for me. Do they, when they get to UCL, does it mean that the person who finishes fifth doesn't get UCL?
Ooh, yeah, I think so. No. I think the person who finishes fifth will still make UCL. Yeah, will
Okay.
still make UCL.
That'll be that'll be
Yeah, so
interesting. It
that
means that
means
we
there'll be
may have
6
like six.
teams from England in the Champions League.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But I mean, the most controversial scene of all of this was the red card to Danny Vivian during the United Athletic Bilbao clash, and the penalty awarded. Do you think that's a harsh punishment, a harsh scope of punishment?
It's one of those, right? When the referee gives it, you can't
Yeah,
complain because the player did it. But like in a tie as such, if I was the referee, I wouldn't give it because I'm more for the game flowing as having. But like do you see the referee waved it off in the first place, and then VAR said, "Are you sure you saw it well? Like this isn't clearly this kind of decision." And that's the problem I have with VAR. Like once the referee can make an instant
yeah,
judgment, and that may be the right call. But once you give them an opportunity to look at it again, there is, I don't want to say a psychological gap that is created where now they need to validate, they feel like they have the second chance to, and they need to validate or assess the decision again.
yeah,
They are not going to look at that decision and say, yep, the first instinct was right. Because the first instinct may have been right on the basis of, I think it was soft. I think it was this. But after that, you'll be punishing them more because you say, well, you had a chance to look at it again. Like, and you still didn't change it.
yeah,
Like, over here at this point, it is the facts that matters. It's not how you view it. It's, did he touch him? Was the rule broken? And then you can't instinctively just go against the rule or things like that. So referees almost have no choice once they get to the screen. Once there is some form of contact, once there's the checklist for all of the rules are ticked, they are going to give it, which I don't think that's how football should be played. Sometimes you judge the game based on what's happening within the game. Like the laws do matter, but referees are given the power to be quite like nimble with the way in which they apply these things. Like on first glance, yes, like he held him, but was it strong enough contact to withhold
yeah,
him not to reach the ball? Was he going to reach the ball anyway? No. But once you send him to the screen, you are telling him you've made a mistake. It's possible you've made a mistake. He's not a guy going to say, "Oh well, no, I didn't make a mistake."
yeah.
Like
I mean,
that's not what happened. It was I made a mistake.
I'm
Yeah.
very cautious about VAR charts these days because the same argument could apply when the referee makes the wrong decision. And the question is, like, let's say the referee awarded the penalty and VAR thought it wasn't a penalty. Should VAR
Mm.
send the referee to the screen? Should VAR interfere and all that? So sometimes it's a tricky situation because then at what point does VAR say, referee go to the screen or don't?
No,
Only
it's
when
the same scenario.
is it only when the decision would go against someone or when the decision has already been made against someone and VAR wants it to be corrected? I don't know if you get me.
No, it's the same. It's the same scenario. If the referee was to give a
Mhm.
penalty, it meant that in that moment, like in that moment, they saw and they thought it wasn't a penalty. And when you send them to the screen, and then there are some check marks or check boxes that they just fill up, and then they say, "Okay, whoops, no penalty," because they don't want the most controversial
Yeah,
decision. Like at that point
yeah,
in time, it's like we've given you the facts, you
yeah,
still got it wrong. So they are always going to sort of lean towards, like VAR is supposed to say, "Look, I have doubts here. Are you sure about what you
but
did?"
that's what VAR
But
does.
now it's becoming, yes, that's what VAR is supposed to do. But now more and more, it feels like whenever a VAR says, "I have doubts," hardly do you see referees
But
going
for
back
that
and
one, it's
say,
true.
"Yep,
It's true, and that might also be that referees because ultimately referees still have the discretion to still go back and say, yeah, I saw what I saw, same thing as I assessed on the field, no penalty. So if the referee changes their decision, it's ultimately because maybe from where they were standing, from the angle they were standing, they didn't see the contact properly. But also in my assessment, for instance, that if it happens outside of the box, it's a denial of a clear goal scoring opportunity. And so that might warrant a red card. You see, there's this thing with defenders where they gamble with it all the time. They would be pulling you back and they are smart enough to let go just in time for it to appear as a soft foul. This particular one just went on for a little bit too long. And that line is so thin that sometimes, whether you are before the line of persuasive foul or after the line of persuasive foul, can be just fractions of a second, right? And the experienced defenders would always know. They pull you and let you go, and then you would fall, and they'll say, you fell. But this one, his hand was on his shoulder almost till he was on the ground. So anybody who sees the replay will think it's a foul.
I agree with you that he didn't give the referee much choice in there. Like once you put the choice to the referee, like it's a decision that you can't contest. Like I can see why some referees will not give it, but the referee will give it. I'm not going to sit anywhere and say it was a bad refereeing decision.
But do you think the red
it was? And once it was a foul,
necessary?
Yes. And once it was a foul, it was a denial of a clear goal scoring
Then
opportunity.
it was a red
So
card.
a red card. Yeah, it was a red card.
Rules.
And for me, that speaks to, for me, the larger issue here is somehow the persistent lack that Man United seems to be getting within this competition. And I'm not saying that they've not deserved all of their wins, but if you look at what is happening throughout all of their matches, it looks like they find a way to play UCL every single time. Like there's no way this Man United team should be sent to play UCL.
See,
there's no way.
Chelsea was supposed to be in Europa League. United were supposed to win FA Cup.
United were abysmal towards the end of the season. They just built up some mojo. Like when they see a trophy, it's like then they become different animals. They beat Man City, which, to be fair, it was the same conditions, right? Man City had just won the league. They said some of the players were hangover. So it does look like it's these circumstances time and time again that's favor Man United. But personally, from an English competitive point of view, I would love to see most of our English teams like participating in the UCL. Like for me, when United is in the UCL, it's always banter and laughs. I remember when they were there like a season ago, having got there by some miracles, and they had to drop again into the Europa League, those kind of things. But anyway, it's all good.
A few things. Barca-Inter, what a classic of a game that was. 6 goals. I mean, Marcus Thuram was saying that Inter tried several means or several different approaches of playing against Barca. And it just felt like none of them was working because they try and press high and they have technically gifted players to just weave through the press. And you try and sit deep and they are attacking you like a swarm of pigeons, just flocking against you. And the difficulty is, how do you set up against such a team? And to be very honest, Inter did really, really well with the way in which they were able to still hold their fort in the game, take the lead on multiple occasions, and then Barca had to bounce back in the game. But what's your assessment on the game? Because for anybody who watched that game, it was definitely an enjoyable game. To be a football fan who watches a game and sees 6 goals in a single game, that's like some huge roller coaster of emotions that you definitely enjoy.
And that's why Barcelona is my best team in Europe. I think I called Barca winning trophy, right? And I called PSG Barca final, which I do hope is still that happy because I think these are two of the best teams. And I'm a football purist like that. Spain at Euros, I was like,
I want the best team Inter final.
Yes, because you are the one for haram balls. Someone said they want to see an Arsenal Inter final. What? I'm like, one, because they were an Arsenal fan and they don't want to face Barca. So they want an as I was like, what kind of robotic do you want to send us back into
No.
1990? What
Also,
kind of
my
Aram
reason
terror?
for wanting Inter in the final, trust me, is because people don't watch the Italian league. But Inzaghi and Inter are playing some of the craziest tactics. If you would like, watch the second leg, and the reason why Barca is struggling against them. He is the only manager I've seen who sometimes, in a set phase of play, has his centre backs as attacking midfielders and his central midfielders as centre backs and his attacking midfielders as central midfielders. So you don't know who to
Oh,
trust.
that's interesting.
He's playing this wild switch in formations at different phases of play. That for me is interesting to watch, right? So it's not because I think he's playing a robotic football. No, it's because I think
Yeah.
he's
No, Inzaghi is touted as like he's a tournament
yeah,
coach. Like he's very good at knockout
yeah,
play because he's very good at analyzing the weakness of the
yeah.
opposition and like capitalizing on it. And that's why you saw that on the night, Inter got 3 goals, even though they didn't look like
Bro,
they
first
were a
minute,
team that
one goal. Hey.
yeah. And you could see because they used 2 set pieces,
Yeah,
and on set pieces it was a
yeah.
joke. It was a joke. Like it was just like
Giants.
giants against children, just pushing them out. In fact, I think the tactics for one of the things that Barca should just ensure is that they don't concede corner kicks. Because, like, if Inter has 5,
He will
they
score
will score
four.
2. Yeah, they will score 3 or something. Like, no, but Inzaghi is really, really profesh. But I think the match that everyone would want to see is
The
the
PSG
PSG
Barca.
like,
It's also like
Barca
with
final.
Luis Enrique, Barca's history
Yeah,
coming back against them in
yeah.
the
If I
final.
know, if I know, football doesn't always give us what we
Bro,
want, and we might be through an Arsenal Inter final where like trying to move it from first gear, it's like manual car, like driving an
and
articulated.
that's the thing. If you
This will
don't
be the
get the
most
right teams,
mechanical final.
finals can be as boring as it gets. Like, can be so boring.
Yes,
Can be
mechanical. That's what we'll have. I would hate to see Arsenal Inter play
yeah.
anywhere. Oh
Who do
God.
you call for the final, though? Who do you call for the final?
No, for between PSG and Barca, like I think
No,
uh,
between Inter and Barca.
it's no between Inter and Barca. I think Barca makes it through,
Okay.
and the reason I say that is because this. I don't know. Did you see LamineYamal? Jesus Christ!
Bro, that guy is brilliant. He's
Oh no,
just,
he's the best player in the
he's
world, and
just
I'm not talking Ballon d'Or. Ballon d'Or they use whatever they use, but in terms of talent,
he's
I
brilliant.
I, I don't think anyone
He's
has his level of
brilliant.
talent
And I
in
think
world
there's
football.
always been this thing in the world. For me, the most important thing I'm looking forward to is his play next season. How does he play next season?
Mm.
How does the team set up next season?
The way if I can answer that, the way like if you look at the way Messi evolved,
Yeah,
when Messi came, he was like this right
yeah, yeah,
winger,
yeah, yeah.
like start from there, cut in, then over time more
As a
central,
10,
dropping
yeah,
deeper, false nine. So I think Lamine Yamal already at 17, his skill set from that right wing, because we've seen people play on the right
yeah,
wing, right? What do? You go cut to the
yeah,
byline, like the very good
yeah,
wingers are good on both
yeah,
sides. They can cut in or they can drive to the bar line and then put the cross
yeah,
in. He's developed multiple things in his skill set. He can take on 2 players, 3
yeah.
players at once. At 17, that is just
And
ridiculous.
he
He can also
when he cuts back,
cross with his left foot.
bro, when he cuts back, it's either a dangerous cross or he's going straight for the top big.
Yes, yes, and that used to, if you remember, at Euros and also last season, that was his signature
Yeah,
technique.
yeah,
He wasn't
yeah.
dribbling a lot. It was mostly cut
And
back
shoot.
and then
Yeah,
cross, and that's where Rafinha and Lewandowski were feeding because they used to populate the back
yeah,
post and then they were attacking the balls. But this season, he's added so much more to his game. Like his curling shots are almost like always bound for
yeah,
goal. But I think he's going to add even way more to his game. Like tactically, if he gets very good coaches who still are handling him, sort of like the things he could be doing in terms of breaking tactics. But I want to deviate from it because I'm a bit excited.
yeah.
and talk about the setup of Hansi Flick. Like, this is a team that is made to score goals.
Yeah.
If you saw how they generated the chance for the second goal, it is ridiculous. Usually, when you have 11 players behind the ball set this way,
Yeah.
and you can't pass through them,
No.
you can't cross because they have center backs there. How he was able to, usually you need them to make a
Yeah,
mistake.
yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
they
yeah.
are attempting to attack, and you counter them before you can find a chance. And it's only Man City who has been known to be able to pass through
Yeah.
them. What they did was, with the three center backs of Inter, they put Rafinha between the center
Yeah.
back and then the wing back. And what he did was he started to make a run
Yeah.
that drew out the center back and immediately got the attention of the center back. He didn't make the run behind him in a way that he'll be
Yeah.
offside. It was more of like a diagonal run, which pulled him there. And then instead of him then trying to head on goal, because that would have been a half
Yeah.
chance, he cuts
Back.
back because that's caught the
Yeah.
attention of the two defenders to say, okay, what if he wins the
Yeah.
ball? Now, immediately they move this way, Ferran Torres steps into the space and then scores. And you could see that they didn't just have that, they had multiple
Yeah.
things. Like, one of the things they did was they get the ball quickly to LamineYamal, and he drives. And once the entire team is moving this way, they have a way of crossing immediately in a way that they move against the direction of
I
the
mean,
opponents and then cross.
if you look at the profile of that second goal, for instance, we've seen that several times last season. Manchester City do it with Phil Foden at the edge of the box, where a lot of teams were
Yes.
playing behind the ball, and their signature move on the right wing, instead of crossing the ball, cut back into space at the edge of the box and shoot. And so those things have been, and if you look at it, it might be a Barcelona philosophy, really, because if you look at the coaches who are doing this, and you look at the lineage
Yeah.
of play, Pep Guardiola
Oh no, but it's
play,
brilliant.
like,
It's brilliant. Like having a team there and saying sit there, but we'll create chances.
awesome. Thanks very much for joining us on this episode. It's 1 hour of reviewing everything that has happened in the world of football. We hope you enjoyed it. Let us know your thoughts. Right from Liverpool winning the EPL, the comparison between Klopp's point tallies of not winning versus Slot's horse race to victory. And you talk about the UCL, Arsenal, Arteta's rebuild, and all the things in between that we've discussed. And also let us know, who do you think would be making the UCL finals? Do you think it would be Arsenal against PSG? Do you think Arsenal would be able to do it? Maybe Arteta pulls Mourinho into some giant Erling Haaland and he scores some beautiful goals. Or do you think that eventually you would have Barca PSG as most people have predicted?